The best things in life are worth waiting for. Michael Felder's takes on Bill Belichick to North Carolina. It has reached the summit here on a Felder Friday. I'm not Stephen Hartzell. I'm Kyle Schassburger at Kyle Schass. Michael Felder in the bleachers and locks of the dock. Tripp Hurd is with us. We'll have Lauren Brownlow, who covers the ACC unlike any other. Boots on the ground in the research triangle to talk about Bill, official at Carolina. We'll try to get to some other items. Carousel continuing to spin elsewhere. Rich Rod at West Virginia and Barry Odom at Purdue. Transfer portal galore. Army, Navy, maybe Felder's early reactions or projections for this 12-team playoff field, as it'll be the first time we talk with Felder on College Sports Now following the bracket reveal this past weekend when I was in Cancun. So, Felder, I've only been stateside for about 5 days. I had a wedding. It's good to see you, man. It's been a couple of months. It's been a wild few days, and I first got wind of the Belichick stuff from some rando in a Cancun swim-up bar at an all-inclusive resort, and I thought he was talking about the Bears. No, he's talking about Carolina. Tell me your thoughts, your reaction. Hartzell told me, he prepped me, you caught wind of this maybe earlier than anyone.
Yeah, I was talking to Tripp pre-show, and I didn't realize how connected I was to all this stuff. I didn't realize how much I knew. And so I'm exhausted right now. I'm going to be honest with everyone. I'm very tired because I'm not used to being on the phone. I'm very mad too because my screen time is going to be up way more than normal on my phone, and I'm trying to get it down below 2 hours a day. I'm trying to get below 2 hours on average a day, and this has blown my screen time up. But for the folks that are listening, I said Wednesday of last week, I told Hartzell that this is a real thing because I was told by people that were on the search committee and people that know people that are on the search committee that this is a real thing. This is their pursuit. After Sumrall at Tulane, after Willie Fritz at Houston, they both said no. This was a real thing. After Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is someone I played football with. The offensive coordinator for the Steelers. Yeah. I played football with Arthur Smith. They thought Arthur might bring in good NIL money because his dad created FedEx. So all this has been all of it. And I'm dealing with it on the back end and the front end. So the front end is my friends calling me, my teammates calling me and being like, hey man, I talked to so-and-so. They really are in active pursuit of this guy. Like this is they're running him down. The factors, whether it's his kid, which you can't do that in North Carolina because it's a public school and you can't just give someone a job, which is his son, Stephen, wants to be the coach in waiting. Can't do that because of the job has to be actually posted for you to get the job. Then you get to, they like the fact that they don't have to deal with like a wife. And I know that sounds crazy, and I'm not misogynistic. I'm not trying to be misogynistic. What I'm saying is they're not negotiating with two people. They're just negotiating with him. And so that's the other part, because there's a 24-year-old girlfriend. Like they're like, he's got $100 million. Like, what's the difference?
Will she ever appear on Franklin Street, or is Bill going to keep her guarded from that area?
Yeah, but the thing is it's not like Miss Terry, right, at Alabama, right. where Alabama's got to deal with Miss Terry. It's not like Gus Malzahn and his wife either, where you have to you better make her happy. It's not that. And so that was another thing that was brought to my attention. And then I talked to two of my guys, Chris Sims and another guy. I'm not going to name names because that guy is still actively working and he might come actually work at UNC. But I play football with him. I work with Sims for Bleacher Report. Both of them have told me, and repeatedly, Bill Belichick does not like people. So they don't know what this looks like. He hates people.
And, I believe him.
And Tripp brought up the recruiting angle of that. Yeah, that's you got to go and talk to somebody's mother, or you got to go to, you got to talk to somebody's grandma or something. But
he ain't recruiting. He ain't getting in those homes. It's going to be like Dion, where the kids come to him, or Belichick's going to use his staff, and Steve probably will be the chief official in running most of this organization. Bill's just going to coach ball, and the kids are going to come to him.
The problem becomes with UNC. I don't know if you've ever been to the Dean Dome, but do you see those comfy chairs?
Yeah,
the big basically they're lazy boys.
Like a 4-inch pad on that thing.
Those chairs in the front row, like the students at UNC don't sit on the floor. It's not like Cameron. The students at UNC are in the rafters, and they're behind the baskets.
I've been in those rafters. I could put almost my whole hand in the ceiling. It's so dilapidated.
Yeah. And so it's the point. The point I'm making is the people that sit around the stadium, he's gonna have to talk to those people.
Yeah.
And they're gonna want to talk to him, and he doesn't want to do that. So that was that part. Then you flip that coin over. You go to the shiny side. This is a guy that's worked for 40 years with free agency, with contracts, with all those things. So, and obviously I can't wait to get Brownlow's takes on it. I've talked to her a couple times this week already, so I'm glad she's going to be on the show. But he's dealt with free agency. He's dealt with contracts. He's dealt with deals. He's dealt with all that stuff. He's dealt with roster management and roster building. And now as we move forward in college football, where you can have 105 kids on your roster, they all have to be on full scholarship. This is going to be really interesting. I think that obviously $10 million a year is a big investment from UNC. It's a huge investment from UNC. And how they handle this is going to be, I don't know, it changes the dynamic with respect to basketball, because they're also in the process, and I don't know if you guys know this. This is another thing that I found out. There are people that want to fire Hubert Davis. So
sure,
it's going to be really interesting to see what this looks like. And I'm glad it's over. I'm curious to see what happens moving forward, and I can't wait to talk to Brownlow about it. But man, I feel like this is a big step towards them finally understanding that football is king.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question. I mean, Carolina showed that they're going to invest through this hire. Now, what that number is beyond his 5-year, $50 million, salary, when it comes to revenue sharing and what we believe to be up to $20 million roughly that way, but unlimited NIL. But how does that compare even in bringing Belichick in? And even this 400-page manuscript, this Bible that he's put together, this plan to quote unquote innovate, training, development, nutrition, the mental capacity, all, surround these players at Carolina with all of these things to get them most ready for the NFL. Well, I'm sorry, Bill, but like Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, how many schools are in front of you that have already been doing this with guys that have experience in college football? Like,
Tripp, that's the thing. I do, and I don't want to compare him to like Charlie Weiss. Charlie Weiss, remember, famously said, like, he's like the smartest guy in the room. Chip Kelly, same thing. So, but he does have the rings to show it, and so we'll see what this and I hate saying we'll see what this looks like, but the reality for me is, how many of these kids know who he is, which is a very interesting point, and can he actually do it? I think this is it's a push to see if he can do it. If he can do it without Tom Brady, by himself, just do it.
I think it's an indictment on the NFL too. What do you think, Tripp? I mean, you had 8 openings last year. Only the Falcons interviewed this guy. And then you've got 3, including our beloved Bears already this season, with the Saints and Jets joining them. And Belichick, obviously, who's as connected as anyone, he's the greatest coach of all time, 6 Super Bowl rings, 8 in total. Like, he's got a wide enough network where he's not getting enough feel. He's not getting enough attention. He's like, you know what? I am going to run this Carolina thing out because my dad coached at Navy, and I remember him coaching in college, and I know I'm going to get the autonomy. And I think that's what it is. NFL teams aren't willing to give him the power.
Bingo. That's your Tripp. Go ahead. But yes.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. I also, just when you brought up NFL, one of the guys we've talked to a couple of times on the show, Brad Crawford, he mentioned on Twitter, I think yesterday, or the day before, something interesting about the buyout. Like after a
we
year,
we were talking about this last night at the Christmas party.
It drops dramatically down, right? So is
From
that
10 to
before he even coaches a game?
Him? Yeah, is that an out? Like, hey, if we go 11-1, or if we just do really well, and then maybe a few of those NFL teams are calling him again, is that like an out for him?
Yeah.
Do you think that's planned on his side? I guess I don't know. I just thought it was kind of an interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah, it is. It's, and as you mentioned, Shass, it's before he even coaches a game.
It drops from $10 to $1 million on June 1st or June 25th.
Yeah, in June.
Insane. Yeah.
You haven't done anything.
No.
So it's going to be interesting. But it is an investment. I don't know if it's going to work. One of the things that I guess, you know what? This is part of the Felder 5. We already talked about him as a recruiter. He brought in a GM. So that's 2 of the Felder 5 we've already got crossed off. And the thing I'm looking at, the other part is he is used to coaching adult men.
Yes.
Adult men with children, adult men with families, adult men. And not to say that doesn't exist in college, but he's used to coaching professionals. And this is something that I've said many times because I don't think people understand this. Like, when you're in college, you're a kid. You are a kid. These are kids. And you have to make sure they show up on time. So I'll put 3 silos here. 1, this is a guy that coached Rob Gronkowski, right? Notable partier. For sure. But guess what? Gronk showed up on time. Gronk got the job done. This is the man that coached Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
Lawrence Taylor. Notable.
Mm-hmm.
Let's skip it up for you. This is a guy that also coached Aaron Hernandez. Hey, man, do what you do off the field, but you show up. I'm going to make sure that shovel pass goes right to you because we know we need this 2 tight end system with you and Gronk.
But Felder, isn't it easier? I mean, it's easy for us to sit from our chairs and you play the game. So, collegially at North Carolina, if people forget that. But isn't the NFL job compared to college football, today's college football, much easier? That's why Nick Saban got out.
That's what I'm saying, Shass. What I'm saying is, like, he coached Gronk, Lawrence Taylor, and Aaron Hernandez.
Right.
And they won games. They won Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So
you're getting to the personnel side of it for sure. In terms of the player, the type of player he's going to have in Chapel Hill, we don't know.
We don't know, but what I'm saying is that all he needs you to do is show up and do your job.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I'll throw this out there because I know this college sports now. We are interested in the student athlete, and the student part, it's going to be very interesting. Butch Davis also had a really hard time with the student part. And that's where, when NFL guys go to college, guys that are primarily NFL guys, when they go to college, that's when I'm like, what does this look? What are we going to see here? Because I'll never forget. I wasn't in the meeting, but because I was done playing football at UNC when Butch Davis got there, but my teammates were still there. But Butch Davis did this, and I'll show you guys on camera right here. Right? You hold up a 2, and you say, "School is number 1," and then you hold up a 1, and you say, "Football number 2." And that famously was Butch. Like, that's what he said to everyone. And I get it. Like, that's not the same as like Clark Lee, right, at Vanderbilt. Like, that's not the same as even Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. It's not the same as those guys. Like, this is a football first mentality. Football is your life. Football is what you do. Football is what you have to do. So it's gonna be a ride. And these guys are going to realize, like, he's used to cutting people. He's used to telling people to go, like take a walk, like kick rocks if you don't work out. but he's also a very good developer of talent. And we've seen that whether it's Welker, Edelman, specifically wide receiver, Welker, Edelman, Amendola. But we've also seen what he can do when he gets some exceptional talent like Randy Moss, right? And that's one position. We're not even getting into like the Vince Wilfork or the Gerard Mayos or the
Rodney Harrison
or the Brandon Dedricks of it all. Like, we're not even getting into that. Like, these guys, when he has good talent, it's good. Now, I'm very curious to see how he gets big people to go to UNC. There's only been 2 people in the last 30 years that got big people to go to UNC. Mac Brown, Butch Davis. He's got to find a way to get big people. He's got to find a way to get big people because UNC's defense right now they're small.
Yeah, we're talking large humans, right?
Yes, and there's only a handful of them, and mostly they go to Georgia or they go to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe
even
Texas.
The ones that grow up in North Carolina, they go
to. Dude, don't.
Tripp,
I had a long conversation last night with my man Chip Patterson from CBS.
Yeah,
he and I were on the phone for about 35, 40 minutes, and we were talking about that too, like keeping guys at home, which means you do have to have a relationship, which means someone on your staff has to know. You got to know these, like the little hollers where these kids are coming from, right? You got to know. It's not just knowing Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro. Like, yeah, everybody knows Dudley's a good school. Everybody knows Dudley's got players, but you better get to Davie County, right?
Rocky Mount, Julius Peppers.
Rocky Mount, Nash County. You better get your behind out to Elizabeth City and go find somebody, because otherwise they're going to end up at Virginia or they're going to end up at Maryland.
Yeah.
Well, I
got to deal with all that stuff.
Jordan Davis, now with the Eagles, former Georgia guy. What wasn't he a Charlotte guy? I think it was Charlotte area high school. Yeah.
His dad was the resource officer at my mom's middle school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like, again, I didn't realize how connected I was to this stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well you brief.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
You brought up Chip Patterson. How you and him talked for 40 minutes yesterday. He was the guest last time I guest hosted 6 weeks ago. We got Lauren Brownlow here today. Lauren, thanks for jumping on. Boots on the ground in the Research Triangle. Follow her on Twitter. What is it? At LE Brownlow. Just as it sounds. At LE Brownlow. Lauren, it's been a wild, hectic, chaotic week. 7, 8, 9 days. I don't know, even longer. Felder's given us the inside scoop of when he first caught wind of this. When did you first start believing Bill Belichick to Carolina was real?
So I started believing it was real, probably almost up until it happened, to be honest, because I was like, what's happening here? In the beginning, I started getting alerts from like Yahoo Sports, and I remember thinking it was like some sort of plant from Belichick to like leverage his way into a different kind of job, because they were so aggressive. I kept getting them. It was like, this could work, and I'm like, something's going on here. Like, this isn't on. This isn't like, this is so suspicious. And then all of a sudden it just kind of kept snowballing. And it reminded me of the way the Mac thing went down, to be honest. Because I remember when I first heard that, I was like, LOL, okay, sure, they'll hire Mac again. That makes sense. But then they did it. And, I caught a lot of grief because I was one of the ones that came out from the jump saying that wouldn't work. Like, at least long term, it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And I feel at least somewhat vindicated on the latter part of that. But, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going on here or who's calling. It's not a good sign that that's 2 hires in a row now that essentially, like, your athletic director is shown to be the one that's not calling the shots.
Yeah. Brownlow, what's up? I told you.
I know.
This was an exercise in me realizing that I am connected to UNC in a way that I didn't think I was, but so are you. And I think that the biggest thing here now becomes, what do you think the biggest thing Belichick brings to UNC in this situation? Is it the transfer portal? Is it the NIL? Is it the handling players? Is it the actual football? What do you think the biggest things that he brings to the school?
I definitely think it's
not kids going to class.
obviously. But I think it's the actual football. Yeah. I mean, look, I've always had a lot of respect for his football knowledge. I mean, the dude knows that stuff really well. I think the questionable part towards the end of his career was maybe some of his skills as a GM, although I've seen some context delivered from some of that like maybe it wasn't as bad as I was, and who knows, like it's hard to know with some of that stuff and whatever, but like, obviously his football acumen is unparalleled, really. And so maybe that gives him a certain cachet with people that transfers over into like, oh, I want to play for this guy, like, but maybe it doesn't mean as much to these kids as it would have to the kids 5-10 years ago. Like, I don't know. But I said the same about Mac. I was like, what do these kids know about Mac Brown? But Belichick's personality, and this is where you have to get concerned, is obviously like the exact opposite of Mac Brown. Like, he's not glad handing anybody. He's not hyping, I don't know. So that part, it's like, it's hard to imagine him going into a recruit's house or, whatever, and being like, and sucking up to anybody. It's just hard to imagine him doing that.
Well, let's sit on that, because I was talking to these guys earlier about like the Dean Dome. The Dean Dome has like basically lazy boys like on the floor for people so that it's easier for them. And those are the people that he's going to have to talk to. Yeah. And how do you think he's going to handle that?
Well, I guess enough of them with power seem to want him in the first place. So, like, I guess they can help maybe some in that regard of being like, hey.
He's not going to want to talk to them. He's their same age, but he's not going to want to talk to them.
He's probably not. But like, he hangs out in Nantucket, right? Like he has like rich friends that are old, I'm sure. Like he's been around the block enough, and he's old. So like they've got plenty to talk about, you would think. Like, just although he has a girlfriend that's like in college. So what do I know? But obviously he's a diverse conversationalist, just as we've all said about Bill Belichick. He's always
Well, yeah, to that same point, his personality, a lot like Tripp, introverted, grumpy. No, I'm just kidding, Tripp. You're the exact opposite. But like, how is that going to resonate with 18, 19, 20-year-olds? I mean, I guess they know what they're going to get if they choose to go to Carolina to play under Bill Belichick. They're going to understand that's part of it. But like that dynamic itself and him, a guy who's 72 years old, 1 year younger than Mac Brown, taking a job. You don't know if he's going to be there to live out this 5-year contract. Hell, his buyout, we already talked about, goes from 10 to 1 million before he even coaches a game. That's kind of his safety valve to get back to the NFL. So all of this could be for nothing. But, in promising kids and communicating and coaching them up and dealing with the day-to-day stresses of college football, which is so much harder than the NFL. It's a longer calendar. There's more work. Like, what makes this guy, like, was the NFL like dead to him entirely that he wanted to do this? I don't understand. This is why Nick Saban got out.
I don't think he was going to get hired in the NFL right now. Like, I think he needed to take a job in college to sort of prove he still has it before he can go back there. I think he knew that. I think that's why he's here. That's the only reason I think that he's here at this point, is to rehab his NFL. I mean, who knows? Maybe he takes to it better than I thought. I was talking to Felder about it the other day. I was mentioning like Bill O'Brien, I thought wouldn't work at all. I thought that was like ridiculous that they did that. I didn't even think he was a good like X and O guy in his NFL career. So I'm like, why are they even doing this? And that ended up being much better than I thought it would be there.
And now they're coaching. They're coaching in the same league. I thought about that just the other day. I don't know if they're on the schedule. We had some schedule releases. I know we can see the opponents for this upcoming year. I don't think Boston College was on the schedule though. But
considering what happened to UNC this year when they played Boston College, I'm sure they would be glad to not see them again. So,
well, what do you think about the opponent marketing strategy? We saw UCF come out the night it was official, September 20th. Circle the date. 6-time Super Bowl winning coach versus national champion winning coach, Scott Frost. Like the opponents, it's TCU out of the gate. Bill Belichick has to go to Charlotte. He's got to coach at a 15,000 seat stadium, Jerry Richardson Stadium. I think it's week 2. They play Richmond as well before getting into the ACC. But I mean, it's going to be so jarring. It's going to be cringe worthy. I think at times just seeing him and the way he's going to interact with the media. Like, is he going to do this whole dog and pony show? Is he going to do the coaches shows? Is he going to talk with Jones Angel on the reg? Like all the TV shows. Like, can you envision any of this happening? And it seemed like he was turning a corner with his TV role, this past year with the NFL. That was a different Bill, but is can he find the in-between, valves here in college? I don't know.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to track because you do hear people that played for him talk about him very effusively. Like they adore him and they're like, he's actually really funny, which you do see some of that, like, especially in those like NFL films types of him joking around behind. I love it. I do like his dry sense of humor. I'm a sucker for a curmudgeon coach. So I love Paul Johnson, for example. Like I just love that demeanor of like General Grump. I enjoy that. So I came to enjoy Belichick in his later years for that reason. But like, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how adaptive he can be. He was also pretty good in the roast, from what I remember of the Brady roast. So I mean, we'll. I think there's layers to Belichick, but like, we'll see. He has to know what he's getting into. So
I think it's just a fascinating time for Bill Belichick to be coming to college football right now. It's such a clash between the old school and the new school, and I think that HBO and everybody else would be doing a disservice to everyone on the planet by not trying to set up like a Hard Knocks college football type thing, because when one of these young guys who's not getting the playing time that he wants and he's got an NIL deal and he just walks in and he's like, hey, coach, what are we doing? Like, that's worth a lot of money to see that kind of meeting take place to people. I think it would be hilarious, to be honest with you.
What's interesting to me is like, you've seen UNC get a lot of attention for this, for sure, nationally. And in a way, I'm like, okay, so is that just what they were doing here? Like, is that where the program is at this point, that they feel like they need to just like do the thing that will give them the buzz and like the attention, and that people will be like, oh, let's see what they're doing. And like, it's like they were just trying to make a spectacle a little bit too. And I was like, I didn't think they were quite at that point, but okay, I guess maybe they are. And Felder could speak to that better than I can.
But at some point you got to play football.
That's the problem, right? And I will say the one thing that intrigues me in that regard from Belichick is that he doesn't take any BS, really. He never really has. He is very blunt, and guys played hard for him. They played their butts off for him. So
that's what
maybe they could instill that.
I said it already earlier on the show. You better be a professional. This is a guy that coached Rob Gronkowski, noted partier, Lawrence Taylor, noted partier, and obviously noted killer Aaron Hernandez. So if you show up, don't look. Why'd you look away?
Just took me a minute. Sorry.
Like, here's the thing: if you show up on time, do your job, he can.
Yes.
He will. He can deal with you. If you don't show up on time, but you're so good that he needs you, it'll work. And then obviously on the flip side of that, obviously you talk about Tom Brady, a guy that was early in, early out, Wes Welker, Amendola, all those guys, early in, early out, early in, late out, excuse me. And he's worked with all different types of football players. And I think it was Chip. No, I was talking to my buddy Jay Spence, and he was like, there's a Bobby Bowden to him, where Bobby Bowden could handle Deion Sanders, and Corey Simon, and he could also handle Chris Winkie, and he could deal with all these different types. And he can regulate based on how good. I'll be honest, how good you are. He can regulate based on how good you are, and I think that is something that I think Mac Brown. I do think he struggled with that. I do think that Larry Fedora was very bad at that, regulating based on how good you are, because it's not about everything being egalitarian. It's about things being equal. And those are egalitarian is different than equal.
Yeah.
You regulate to where this person's baseline is, and then you go from there. So this is going to be a very interesting situation. This is not an all Bill Belichick podcast, just for the record. The ACC the ACC's playing in bowl games.
Yes, they are.
What are we expecting to happen in these? Hang on. Let's take a big picture view, because the 12-team playoff has seemed to wash everything out. It washed out signing day. Like, and I say this as someone who does.
Yeah.
I love recruiting. It's washed out signing day. UNC, by the way, signed 6 kids on signing day. Oh yeah, you didn't know that.
Is there more coming, or?
I mean, hopefully, but yeah. But it washed out signing day. But what do you think this means for the bowl games? Because it feels like the playoff, it's just playoff in a bigger way than when it was 4 teams.
I think you're right about some of that, but I will say I think transfer portal has washed out some of signing day as well, because like
For
that's
sure.
become, and it's had an impact on recruiting, which I'm sure you know way better than most, like how much it's had an impact on recruiting. They'd rather get a guy in there that's a known commodity than like risk it on a freshman, and that stinks for recruiting for sure. But then there's also, like, you're right about the bowls but I don't know that it was just the 12 team, at least, because like I feel like that's been a thing the last couple years, especially. It's just been like this cycle where it's been getting worse and worse. And I, by the way, don't blame the players at all. No. You're done. You want to be out. It's your prerogative, right? It is ultimately a meaningless game. Like, don't play in it if you don't feel like it's in your best interest. I'm with it. I get it. But it's kind of like, in my mind, it's almost sort of like it's hard to take the bowl results nearly as seriously at this point, because it's like, who's even playing? Like, it's even hard. It's even harder to make them extrapolate into the next year, unless you're looking at like a quarterback that hadn't gotten to play yet, and you're like, oh, well, what's he going to do?
Young guys.
But like, the young guys. But to me, that's what's washed it out some too, is just more and more guys sort of being like, for what? Whether they're transferring or going pro or whatever, or just don't want to risk it, like, because they're like, why? And I kind of understand, but I think that's taken a lot away from it too. And it's definitely something where it's like, it's just hard to even know how much stock to put in those games in the first place that aren't the playoff.
So go ahead, Chess.
I was going to say nation leading and league record, 13 ACC teams. No league has more teams in bowl season than the ACC. So they got 13 bowl eligible teams. I don't know when the first one is. We have bowls this weekend. We do have one Saturday going up against the Celebration Bowl. I think it's the Veterans Bowl. We'll get to that after Lauren later on. But
Cal is the first game on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's
we have one before that. I think there's
on Saturday, right? Yeah.
You got South Alabama, Western Michigan Saturday night. Oh, first ACC. I got you.
Yeah, that's wild. That's very early.
Can we talk about Darian Mensah? How I think this might be the biggest steal of the entire portal class. Duke and Manny, the way I take it, Manny basically telling, and I could be wrong, this is why we have you on, provide your insight, but Manny must have been like, hey, Malik, you want more money, or you want to go dip your toe in the portal and see what you can find elsewhere, which I don't blame these kids, any of them, really, for getting in the portal. Like, this is the environment we've made for them. Does it suck? Sure. For us as fans and the nature of how we've been trained all of our lives, that now we have to deal with.
It sucks as a job.
Yeah, as to keep up with it, for sure.
You're like, oh, he's there now?
Yeah, I'm glad it's not my job. But for Duke to allow Malik Murphy and Manny Diaz to take a walk, and then immediately at the snap of a finger the next day have it announced that Mensah, this freshman former 2-star quarterback who came in as the third stringer at Tulane to start the year, won the job for a first-year head coach in John Summerall and did the things that he did this season, and Duke goes and snatches him up. Like, that is a coup. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's tough with Murphy because he was such a gamer. Like, he would have stretches where he would look terrible, and then all of a sudden he'd just turn it on and make a magic throw or have a run, or make a play, get a run. Then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like this, this dude can make plays for you. But he was a little up and down throughout the year, and I feel like, I don't know if it's an upgrade, that remains to be seen, but it's certainly, I don't feel like they're losing anything for sure. And that's a great get for them. They're in just as good a shape, if not better shape, it would seem, than they were last year. Although it's so weird, right? You sometimes see guys play well somewhere and then they get into a new team, new environment, whatever it is, and it just doesn't click.
Howard.
Tyler Van Dyke.
I don't know where he
not
is.
Working.
Kyle McCord worked.
Yeah.
One of the passing leaders at Syracuse. I know you've covered bowl games before. There's one thing, and this is my last one, but there's one thing that I do find to be truly, I don't know if disturbing is the right word, but frustrating about the playoff. These guys are going to the Rose Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, but they are not getting a bowl experience.
Yeah.
They are taking a business trip. And when I went to a bowl game, we did the Richard Petty School of Driving, and we had like an eating competition against Boston College, and we went out and we had a good time. And like obviously you got the Lowry's Beef Bowl out there at the Rose Bowl, and you've got all this stuff going on.
What's the bowl where Paul Johnson was like dancing with a mariachi band playing too? Like with San Diego.
San Diego credit, was it the San Diego credit Union?
Yeah, maybe. But either way, maybe that was even for the Orange Bowl. I'm not sure.
Right.
But either way, yeah, it's fun.
I'm going to tell you something. My team, I got to UNC 2 years after we went to the Peach Bowl. And at that Peach Bowl, they had a room full of Chick-fil-A. And it was 24 hours of Chick-fil-A, like all you could eat nuggets, all you could eat sandwiches. These kids aren't getting that. And I don't know. I do feel some type of way about it because I'm like, they're not getting that full experience.
Yeah, I think that's what I miss the most. Like I get why everybody's sitting out of the bowl games and all of that.
Yes.
And stuff, but it's like, yeah, I do miss that part. And like the bowl games had their own identity, and like you start to like the Pop-Tart, we laugh at that, and the mascot, and like even the Mayo Bowl and all the stuff. Then they do a great job on social media, and they have since they were the Belk Bowl, and you just start to like associate that kind of stuff with different venues and like the activities they do and stuff like that. And like you're going to get a goofy photo op with a coach doing something silly, and all that stuff is just fun. And yeah, you're right that there is something that's missing from that. But look, eventually we're just going to have like 2 super conferences, and people like rivalries aren't going to mean any, like that's what gets frustrating about college football in general right now is like, I just feel like it's pushing to the point where eventually like a lot of stuff that meant something to people in college football will have way less meaning. And that's what sucks.
Much of the earlier part of the week was reserved for the playoff talk. We haven't really talked matchups. We've been talking to each other for over 37 minutes at this point, which is good because that was saved for Hartzell and Wayne and Roddy Jones earlier in the week. And we'll talk more about it once you leave us, Lauren, here in a couple of minutes. But give us your projections. Give us your thoughts. The floor is yours on how this 12 team is going to shake out. First matchup coming up a week from today with Notre Dame hosting Indiana. Then you got 3 games the following Saturday. Who's the favorite? Who's the dark horse? Where's the upset going to be?
That's what's crazy with this year in college football. And one thing I have really enjoyed about it is I like a good, kind of no one is great type of season because it makes things so much less predictable. There is no like Bama that steamrolls everybody or Georgia that's steamrolling everybody. And you just know what's going to happen as soon as they play, almost anybody else in the country. You're like, well, they're just going to crush them, I guess LSU might have been a bit of an exception with Joe Burrow because that offense was so exciting and their defense was bad enough that you were like, they still could find themselves in a precarious situation. But like that offense was just so dominant, that it wasn't quite that way. But yeah, like I just think that part is really fun. And like you could give me almost any series of outcomes and I would like Clemson, Texas. If you asked me about Clemson in general going into this playoff, I'd be like, I don't know that I feel so great about them in general, but
would you rather have
great about Texas? Like,
would you rather have Cade Klubnik or Quinn Ewers?
Well, I'd rather have Quinn Ewers, but yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, see, I'd go Cade. Well, I feel like every game has been a playoff game for Clemson. That's what's made this so great for all of these, Arizona State included, so Cade and Clemson seemingly outside of, their 3 losses seem to be
would you rather have Arch
right now.
Well, Arch then probably than all 3, if we're being honest. I mean, both Quinn and Cade, I think, have had great moments this year for sure. And maybe it's just I watch Cade closer, so I'm closer to it, and then I scrutinize more. But like he had a little bit of a rougher end of the year overall than he did. Kind of like after the Georgia game start to the year, he was on fire, playing great. And then all of a sudden, they got against some better defenses that he struggled some a little bit more. But look, he's I think it'll be interesting in that regard. They're a little bit like mirrors of each other. Their offenses have been frustrating at times. They both kind of struggle to run the ball the way they'd like to. Their defenses are sort of their bread and butter. So I just think, but if you'd asked me a couple weeks ago, like, will Clemson do anything in a playoff? I'd have been like, no. But then, you look at the matchup and you're like, well, maybe, and that's what I think is cool about it just in general. I mean, Indiana Notre Dame is fascinating. I mean, how much of the country is going to just be like rooting for Indiana, partially because they don't like Notre Dame.
Yep.
But Notre Dame's team, like Marcus Freeman is a likable dude, in my opinion. And Riley Leonard's a likable guy. And that team has been really impressive since the first couple weeks of the year. Like I'm fascinated to see how some of these teams perform. And I'm honestly I was pretty happy with the field and like where people were seated. And I haven't been able to say that every year of the playoff. That's for sure. Like it's great to see Boise in there. I'd love to see them mess some stuff up, that'd be cool. But my hopes aren't super high for that. Because I think they're limited in some ways, but like, I'm excited to see some upsets happen and to see some exciting. I'm all here for the underdogs, and this is a great year to root for an underdog in college football. That's for sure.
Yeah, tremendous theater for sure. Can't wait. Week from tonight, again, the first playoff game. Lauren Brownlow, appreciate you joining us. Anything else, gentlemen? You have anything else for Lauren? Can we let her run?
We're good. Thank you so much for hopping on. I know I've been blowing your phone up all week.
No, it's fine. We got to talk through this together. So I got to
on Twitter, on X at LE Brownlow, covers the ACC and everything else college football here across the state of North Carolina. And she knows her stuff. So Lauren, thanks so much. Okay. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Do we want to talk more portaling at all? Or do we want to get back on the coaching carousel? Where do we go from here? What's next on the Felder 5?
Here on the Felder 5, Barry Odom to Purdue.
And Dan Mullen now going to UNLV.
Dan Mullen at UNLV. So here's the thing. I do radio in Las Vegas every week.
Yeah. Aren't you on with my boy Sam Penny-Otovich? Do you go on with Sam?
Oh, I do that every other week for BetQL. I do that on Tuesday. That's on Tuesday.
I went to high school with Sam.
Did you really?
For 1 year, he stayed at Mount Carmel, the all-boys school. Then I transferred out, but I had sleepovers at his house. He grew up next to me. We were baseball rivals, and his mom makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the world.
That's amazing. No, I do. I go on BetQL with Sam Penny-Otovich every other Tuesday, which I just talked to him this week. Yeah, I got his phone number in his number's in my phone. Dude.
Yeah, dude, we text each other happy birthday. So, that guy.
But Steve Cofield, who is the player, he does sideline for UNLV. And Barry Odom had like a profound impact on that school, on that football program. Obviously goes to Purdue. We'll see if he can get it done there. I don't know what it looks like because Purdue is down bad. But Dan Mullen coming in is going to be a really big, like you got a guy, and he's going to have – they don't have the quarterback that we thought they were going to have. And I found that out as I was doing the show. It's what we're going to look at is the younger guys, but Dan Mullen is really good. Dan Mullen is how Florida won, 2 national championships? Dan Mullen's how Mississippi State got to be in the top 5.
They were the first number 1, I think, when we in the 14 playoff, like in the rankings.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. So he is a good football coach. He's a goofy guy.
I'm going to miss him on Thursday Night Football with Matt Berry. They're fun watching the games. I like their style.
He's a goofy guy, but he's going to find a way to create this run-pass dynamic that is going to keep them good. I mean, UNLV, they're going to be a good football team. And I hate to say it, but, man, they're in Vegas.
The appeal's there, and the hard part's already done. Odom's come in and resurrected the program and made the program relevant. So now you just got to stabilize it, add your own touch. I mean, this is a home run landing spot for Dan Mullen.
Yeah. So look, he did his time on television, and we'll see where this goes from here. I mean, I'm pulling it up right now. I just want to see because I already mentioned that UNC had signed 6 guys. They have 17 letters of intent already signed at UNLV. So, and then you bring in Mullen, and now you have an opportunity to make things work. So this is going to be really interesting.
And it's a guy with an SEC head like
Yep.
Barry Odom was, coming to
Yeah.
UNLV to a Mountain West school. Are they? I
Yes.
can't keep it straight. They're remaining in the Mountain West, right?
Yes, they're not going anywhere.
Okay. So yeah, it's Vegas, baby. And UNLV, I think the job is incredibly easier than what Barry Odom had inherited. Now you're bringing Dan Mullen in. Barry Odom choosing to go to Purdue, that's a head scratcher, because if he would have waited maybe another year and got another season in Vegas, replicating what he's done in that short turnaround, he may have had a better job opportunity. I don't think
Purdue's a hard job.
Yeah, it's
and especially here's the crazy part for me. Purdue is in a state that has two schools that are both in the playoff. They have Indiana and Notre Dame are both in the playoff.
Yeah.
And they win one game?
Yeah, 1-11.
And they also, against those two teams you're talking about, lost by a combined, I think, 121 points.
Yes.
And I'm not making that up.
If you want to handicap Notre Dame IU, just go off of both of those outcomes against Purdue, and Indiana's going to win, because Indiana won 66-0.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame allowed one touchdown, 66-7.
That's bad. That's really bad.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, it was awful. Oh, what about Rich Rod? Let's talk Rich Rod, because I think this homecoming, the reclamation project of his image, of what happened from, hey, he almost
got the Alabama job when Nick Saban got hired. Yeah.
Sure. But to get kicked to the curb from Ann Arbor, go to Arizona, go to the Fiesta Bowl. He did well at Arizona, but then there were things off the field. There was an alleged or charges brought against him sexually that were later dropped. He admitted to having an affair, left football, now he's an analyst and bouncing around, but he gets the Jacksonville State job. So you look at what Barry Odom did at UNLV. Rich Rod was doing the same thing at Jacksonville State.
Yes.
Okay. And he was able to parlay that now and come full circle. It has come full circle back around so much, where West Virginia is going to pull up that old song of Rich Rod and everything that he did and go back to the well. And I think it's great, because he's got the name recognition. He did it for you. He was one win away from getting you to the BCS national title game in 2007. If it weren't for Pitt beating you 13-9 and blowing it up. But you get a chance to go back now. I think it's awesome.
It just feels right.
Yeah, it feels right. Exactly. It feels right. But will it work?
I just don't. I wonder, based upon hang on. Let me look at the timeline. Because what we're talking about that's 2007. 2007, hang on, I use my calculator. I'm not good at math. 2024 minus 2007.
17 years.
17. So these kids were born. The kids he's going to be recruiting were born when he left West Virginia.
Yeah.
So I don't.
And they don't remember how good.
Hard to remember stuff when you're not born, Tripp.
Well, I mean, a lot of people don't remember just how good Pat White and
Steve Slayton, Pat White, Noel Devine.
They were awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
But here's one detail that I feel like cannot be discounted. This content machine that we obviously subscribe to and helps to employ us and our takes, and Felder's more than ours. We're just here to keep the train on the tracks. But who did Pat McAfee play for? And who's got the biggest microphone in all of sports?
Sure.
Rich Rod. So if you're trying to connect people and help generate buzz too and get behind something, I mean, that doesn't hurt in terms of getting people on board.
Yeah, I also don't understand how a punter got into this position, but it's fine. I'm not in charge. Again, I'm not in charge of anything. Obviously, if I was, it is what it is. I think that, I don't know. We just watched UNC do this, right?
Yeah.
With Mac Brown.
Right.
So, and West Virginia they hired, if we go through their history, they hired the interim, Bill Stewart. Didn't work out. You go get your NASCAR offense with Neil Brown. Oh, didn't work out. Now you're going back to the well, as you said, with Rich Rod. We'll see if it works out. I don't know that rehiring guys works the way that people think it will. I think it makes people feel good, specifically like the money people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes them feel good.
It justifies them wanting to spend.
Yes,
because there's recall there, and it's
familiar. Not. I don't know what this looks like. He hasn't coached in how long?
Well, at West Virginia, it's been 17 years, right?
Yeah.
So
this is gonna, and he's just bounced around. And obviously Jacksonville State, awesome. Is it Jacksonville? Yeah, Jacksonville State.
35, I think, wins or close to 30 wins.
The thing for me, but guess what? It's a new look Big 12. It's not the Big East, which is what he was in before. It's not the Big East. It's a new look Big 12. And maybe he can bring that Jacksonville State into this because it's a different, and I don't want to dump on anybody, but it's a different caliber of coach, which is what he was already, that's what he was like. And I guess that, to tie it back into the Belichick thing, Belichick's going to be the smartest coach in the room. When we go to ACC Media Days, he's going to be the guy that's the smartest guy in the room, right? It's not going to be Mike Norvell, I can tell you that.
I was going to ask you, do we put in our request for Radio Row to have Bill Belichick number one? Everybody's going to have number one Bill Belichick.
Yeah, for sure. But what I'm saying is, so Rich Rod goes to a revamped Big 12 with no Texas, no Oklahoma.
It's there for the taking.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know what? You sold me on it. I just sold myself on it. Let's do it.
Let's do. I mean, the innovator of that spread offense, up tempo, what he was doing, just think, go back into the memory bank of what West Virginia and that team actually was and how entertaining. And then the flop though in leaving and going to Ann Arbor, and how terrible it went.
The Michigan thing is people not buying it.
Yeah.
And that part was really frustrating for me because I was someone who really was a big Rich Rod fan. Them not buying in was frustrating.
27-10, Rich Rod win in 3 years. And we can't forget this at Jacksonville State. He guided them through an FCS, FBS transition too. That's a point that we can't be understated. Similar, you can look. Yeah.
JMU.
Right.
App State. Yeah. Doc Castellanos.
Yeah, I was going to say before we jump to the bowl game stuff, I just kind of wanted to ask you, does that do anything for you? I mean, I'm thinking automatic national championship, but I'm sure you guys have different thoughts. What do you think? What do you there's a lot of things I think Castellanos is a really good player. The whole, quitting on your team thing, can that even matter anymore? Isn't that kind of the world we're living in right now in college football? I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's the world we're living in. I don't think it's quitting on your team. I think it's try to do what's best for yourself. He is good. I
also think he's about the best that Florida State could hope to get after rolling out a 2-10 season.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is when you Google Castellanos, it's Thomas or Nick. And I'm like, which one is the one?
It's Thomas. Nick is the baseball player that.
Yeah. No, I know. But I'm like, okay, Nick Castellanos is going to play football?
Yeah.
No,
our boy Tom Brenneman, ACC galore now with the CW. Bill Belichick is going to have games broadcasted on the CW, and he's playing at Charlotte. That's a CW special, dude. Playing at Charlotte.
I don't know about you guys, but
CW is on the come up,
bro. Yeah, they had come up. They had Gossip Girl. What are we doing?
Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill. It's a great network.
Yeah, I love it.
Our boy Max Brown, who I didn't get a chance to talk with, but I saw him when I went to the Carolina Georgia Tech game in the bathroom line. But we had him at media days. That dude, he's awesome. I mean, he's a star.
I know Max.
Yeah, that's your boy.
got
Yeah,
his-
we had him on when we
talked to him
when we did
Yeah.
our kickoff pod.
I got it. I got his number in my phone too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thomas,
your boy's connected.
I know you are. You are as connected as anyone. Thomas Castellanos, 10 of 16, 106 yards through the air, 2 tutties, 14 rushes, 73 yards, and a touchdown. 3 total touchdowns, Tripp, that Monday night, week 1,
Yeah,
28-13, BC in Tallahassee.
And you can't forget the season before, when FSU went undefeated. Boston College
Gave him a game.
Was an unbelievable game. I mean, I think Boston College led at halftime. Florida State kind of owned the third quarter, looked like they had put the game away, and then BC came on strong at the end. They kind of just had to hang on for dear life. But I do like it. I think, Gus Malzahn coming to Tallahassee.
You got to get your own quarterback, though.
What's that?
You got to get your own quarterback.
Well, they tried that too with Kromenhoek.
Yeah,
kind of surprising to see him leave, but whatever. I don't know how this stuff works anymore. I'm sure we're not in the room. There's got to be promises made. People feel like they're not getting what they were. They're part of the deal or whatever. So I don't know. I think it's about as good a get as Florida State could have hoped to have gotten. And
would you rather have had him or Connor Wegman? Wegman chose Houston.
I think Castellanos.
Felder, I got a question for you. Why can't we put in some sort of restriction on the transfers where you're limited as an undergrad just like one time for immediate eligibility? I know this is all still new, the allowing transfers to become immediately eligible. That was something folks may forget, like up until 5 years ago, that didn't exist. You had to sit out a year or get a waiver. But we opened this door to allow immediate eligibility. And then there's the redshirt thing of 4 games or less where you can protect eligibility. But the jumping around and hopping, like take Malik Murphy, unless you're a grad and you've got a grad year. But is there something against us maybe trying to govern or tweak the policy a little bit so guys aren't transferring every single year?
Here's the thing. I can live with it. I'm fine with it. I think mobility, the freedom of mobility, especially because coaches move every year. So I do think that is something we do have to remember. Coaches, they can move anytime they want. And they can move after they've signed you to go to that school, which stinks, quite frankly. If we see anybody get fired after the bowl game, we've already had early signing day. These guys are already signed. We just saw it happen with Barry Odom. So there's that. But I also think what we need to be doing is less about trying to restrict mobility and more about making kids understand that as you move, your credits don't transfer.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it. And I don't think it's about restricting mobility. You can move wherever you want to move. I think it is about, and look, I played with Gerald Sensabaugh at UNC. And Gerald came from East Tennessee State. He was a senior. Got to UNC. UNC does not respect their credits. So they busted him back down to a sophomore. And Gerald said, F that. I'm not going to class ever. I'll just go get my degree from there where they still have all my credits. And I think we do need to, I think that is the discussion more than trying to restrict mobility. I think the discussion is, do you want to get your degree from here or not? Right? Do you want to get your degree from here or not? Because if you keep moving around and it's like a kid, right? Like that has like piles of rocks. You've got, 17 credits here and 20 credits here, and you have 40 credits here. They're not all together. And I think that's the part. And again, as we talk about them as student athletes and we talk about these guys, most of them are not playing in the NFL. So what do they need? Right? What do they need? They need to graduate. And they need to graduate. So I think that's how we have to talk about it. And I think that there are schools that do a great job of talking about it that way. Stanford, Notre Dame, Wake Forest. Like, they do a really good job of talking about it in that context. And I think other places are they're worried about winning football games, not graduating players. So I think that, to me, is the way, like, to answer your question, that's the way I would talk about it. And the reality is, if I was a coach, one of my biggest recruiting tools to keep players at school would be to ask them what schools are talking to you. And I would try to verify, like, I'd ask them how many of our credits are going to transfer to that school, because that's a big deal. And I don't know if anybody's ever transferred schools, but a lot of credits don't transfer, baby. And that's the hardest part. If you because these kids go to summer school, 2 sessions, usually. So if you enroll in summer, let's do what are kids doing now? They enroll in January. They're taking at least 12, maybe 15 credit hours. Then you do 2 sessions of summer school. So you get 6 or 12 more hours. You do fall. You don't play like you wanted to play. Then you leave. But that's a lot of credits. That's 15 and 15 is 30. 30, it takes 120 credits to graduate. Hang on. I got to bring the calculator back out. 15 plus 15 is 30. Plus, let's say you get 12 in the summer. It's 42 credits. If you got 42 credits over 120, you're 35% away from graduating. Then you go somewhere, they bust you back down to only 10 credits. Now you got to take all that extra time to try to get those credits back. I think that's something that we don't talk about nearly enough.
That's a great point. And how much of it is being talked about when these guys are transferring? How much are coaches and universities and academic advisors, how much are the advisors being looped in? Like, where is the guidance? How much of that is a conversation on what kind of situation or challenging circumstances lay ahead for them academically should they want to transfer? But we know these moves are all being solely made based on playing time and football or basketball. Yeah. So, it's fair. I haven't thought much about that either. Certainly complicates things. Heisman Memorial Trophy going to be given out 9:00, about 8:00. I think the show starts on ESPN. Held at the Jazz at Lincoln Center. Been there since 21. No longer the Downtown Athletic Club. I thought it was always held there, but it's kind of bounced around a little bit. So this is Saturday night. Travis Hunter's, he's the one.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like kind of like a coronation, honestly. Like, which is good. Like, as someone who played defensive back, I'd love to see somebody get their flowers. Mm-hmm. It's been a quarterback award for so long, with a handful of exceptions, and so I'm very excited. I will not watch it, that's for sure, but I am very excited to see a defensive back win the award. Ashton Genty is a really good alternate, but I'm glad that there's not a quarterback that's going to win this. I know Dylan Gabriel is going to be there. I know Cam Ward's going to be there, but I'm very glad that it's going to be not a quarterback winning the award.
Me too. I feel the same way.
When did Devontae Smith? That was a few years ago. That was kind
like
of
2020.
Yeah.
Him, Henry, Mark Ingram. But I mean, it's been so quarterback dominated, and I feel like Travis Hunter is something like, when have you ever seen anything like this? A guy that plays at that high of a level on both sides.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen.
Owen Marisick,
CJ Bailey played a little bit both sides, but
Miles Jack,
the amount of plays, the workload. I mean, this guy's averaging 120 plays per game. I mean, he had 169 in one.
And it's
they're running him into the ground, man. Like,
people. Yeah, go ahead, folks.
I did a draft show for Bleacher Report, and I hadn't thought about this, but Ashton Genty, they are running, like, they're using him the way that was it Mark D'Antonio? They're using him the way that they used Le'Veon Bell. Just a million carries a game. Travis Hunter's getting the same thing. He's just doing it in a different way. Like he's gonna be tired when he gets to the NFL.
I know it worries me. I mean, we're gonna have a high draft pick, Tripp, and we need to.
I love it.
And I don't know if we.
Not sure if he fits
Travis
into.
Is gonna have left.
Yeah, I don't know if he fits into the Bears' future that much, but like the people who are against Travis Hunter right now, I really just don't get their argument that
who's against him.
He's only trust me, you hang
Colorado
out on Twitter long enough, you can find people against anything. But he's not the best corner. He's not the best receiver. If you're like the second best corner and the third best receiver in the country, that's an amazing feat. And just watch the guy play.
He is the best corner, by the way.
Watch the guy play. Watch him play receiver.
So he has
unbelievable.
He's got 4 picks. He's defended 11 passes. He's got 32 tackles. So he's starring on defense for his own team. But offensively, the numbers bear it out. He is one of the statistically best wide receivers in all of the country. 92 catches, 14 touchdowns, 1,152 yards. Only 4 players are ahead of him nationally with more catches. Only 5 more have more receiving yards. And only 1 in San Jose State's Nick Nash has more TDs. So he's second in touchdowns receiving at 14.
Watch the tape on this guy and tell me he's not a great wide receiver.
And he missed parts of 2 games because of the shoulder injury that he had sustained. I mean, it's just saying that out loud. I mean, how can you not? Crazy. He's going to be a runaway. And I love that Ashton Genty is there. Roddy Jones made a great point earlier in the week that where was the love for a guy like Rashard Penny when he was putting up similar numbers? Well, it's all about marketing. It's all about promotion. And Boise is a CFP team who's got a 3 seed, you know? Yeah. And so the fact Boise was as good as they were, certainly, and as good as they are, has helped Genty's cause. But, I mean, he still can break Barry's record. I think he's inside of 150, but he's playing a couple more games potentially.
Yeah, he's playing more games.
Yeah.
Well, if I look, I have no issue with Genty whatsoever. If he won it, I wouldn't be super upset. Like if I had to pick it, Hunter would be my pick. But you gotta stay away from me with this Dylan Gabriel stuff. Like, nothing against Dylan Gabriel either.
It would be a lifetime achievement award for him.
But hey man, look how high my passing percentage was. I just can't.
I got more total touchdowns than anybody who's ever played in the sport. I'm about to pass Case Keenum for another one in terms of passing touchdowns. And
I love him. I love Dylan. I've been a Dylan Gabriel fan since
he's a dog. He's a dog
since he was committed to Army before he flipped to UCF. I am a Dylan Gabriel fan. He is not these other 2 guys.
What do you think about the playoff field before we close up?
Yeah.
Did I get it right?
Let me ask you guys this. And Tripp, you've already heard this question. Chaz, I think you've heard me say it before. With respect to the Alabama and people being upset that they're not in or being happy that they're out. I think Bama fatigue is garbage. We need to respect greatness. Do you think there's a team in this entire field, the 12-team field? Is there one? Do you think there's a team that would say the team I want to play the most is Alabama?
No, I don't think so. Like Alabama's a dangerous team. Don't get me wrong. But I totally agree with them not being part of the playoff. Now, I will say this, as much as I was glad SMU got in there.
Sure.
And it's not just all hangover from last year. I thought that was the right thing to do. But if there's a knock on this playoff, we talked about this a little bit Tuesday. The quarterbacks, like there's no great quarterbacks. There's no super exciting guys. If you wanted excitement, Cam Ward, Milroe, Sellers from South Carolina. Like those guys would have been way more exciting to watch. And I get that. I think South Carolina is capable.
Drew Aller doesn't do it for you?
He does not.
No, but Riley Leonard does. Really. Come on.
I like. Hey, look.
I just think
Notre
for
Dame's
me,
got a real sneaky chance here, if I'm being honest. But
I think Notre Dame does as well. I think that Georgia, obviously playing with I don't think Carson Beck's going to play.
I don't either.
So we're going to the best play Carson Beck made maybe all season was a handoff.
Okay.
Like I'm being like that was the most impactful play that he made all season long. Was a handoff
against Texas
to win the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
So Ewers, we talked about it with Brownlow already. Ewers he's a guy looking over his shoulder the whole time because Arch is sitting there, and Arch is. If you look at their recruiting class, you look at what they're working on in the portal. This is a team that is building so that Arch can win a national championship next year. Will Howard has been disappointment's not the right word. Underwhelming is probably a better word.
Sure.
Some of the decisions that a guy who's a fifth-year player?
Oh,
some of the decisions that he has made, and I'm not just talking interceptions, but like true, like you made a choice, my man, to run with 7 seconds to go. Where do you think you're going to go?
Yeah.
Where do you think you're going to go? Because you're not going to score from 40 yards out. And now you don't have any timeouts. It's done. The game is over. It's done. We're done. So that Drew Aller doesn't do much for me. Penn, like honestly, and we saw it in the game against Penn. What's Penn State's best game?
A loss against Ohio State.
I was going to say a loss against Oregon, but either one.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I was off the reservation in Cancun for a wedding this past weekend, so I was struggling to keep
Their two best games are losses.
Are losses. Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw this in the game against Oregon, watching Oregon point at 44, Tyler Warren, watching them point at him every single time he's on the field so they know where he is, that's all you have to do. So it'll be interesting. I think Indiana, for me, is...
Can they run the football? If they can establish the run.
But their defense is good, too.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is Indiana, let me double check to make sure I'm right about this. Indiana gets to the red zone. And let me pull this up real quick. Indiana gets to the red zone. And that's something I don't think we talk about nearly enough as people that talk about football. But Indiana, where are we at? Red zone conversions. Okay, red zone conversions. Old Dominion is number 1 in scores. Cool. I don't care about scores. I care about attempts.
How many opportunities?
UNLV's been to the red zone 70 times. Indiana's been to the red zone in 13 games. Indiana's been to the red zone 66 times in 12 games. 66 times in 12 games? That's a lot.
That's like 5.3 per game.
Okay, you're good at math. I got to do this.
It's impressive.
5.5. Oh, got your ass.
Got old Texas Instruments over there.
Yeah, dude. But you get to the red zone 5.5 times a game, and you score on 93% of those.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah.
And you score touchdowns on 82% of them. That's good. So that's what I'm like. It's about keeping them out of the red zone. And we've only seen one team be able to do that, right? Only Ohio State was able to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Notre Dame's defense can keep them out of the red zone. If they get to the red zone, they'll score. But they play this thing, I call it station. You know, station. You guys are baseball fans?
Yeah.
So you know, station
Tripp isn't, but I am. Yeah.
Station is station baseball.
Yep.
It's just single. We score. They play station to station football, where it's just 4 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards, but it's all first down.
And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think the football junkies appreciate that more than their ability to just matriculate down the field like that.
Right.
It's art.
It's just first down, and they keep getting first downs. And when you keep getting first downs, all of a sudden you end up in the red zone. Now you're in the red zone. Guess what? Now you get a touchdown, and you get another touchdown, you get another touchdown. Field goal, sure, but it just I love the way that they play football, and I do think it is remarkable that they're able to consistently do that. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah, that's it, man. That's all I got.
Yeah.
That's what I got
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
My only thing to add on the playoff, to your question, I think they got it right. We didn't penalize the title game losers like SMU, like Texas, like Penn State, who didn't fall anywhere in the rankings. So we aren't penalizing people for earning that opportunity. The committee stood pat on that, which I love. Alabama, Ole Miss at their best, yeah, they're as dominant of a team as any, but they didn't win the games necessary.
Dangerous
and others
is the way I would put it. I would put it as dangerous.
Dangerous.
This is when you walk out into your yard and there's a copperhead. That's who they can be.
Or a Gamecock. Give me South Carolina. They're playing their best football, 6 in a row.
And hey, even more importantly, this year they didn't leave out any conference champions either.
Right. Yes.
Making strides.
Except the MAC and the Sun Belt.
I think we can tweak the seeding. I think we could tweak the seeding on who's getting the buys. Arizona State getting the bye, and Oregon having probably the roughest path as the number 1 seed, getting the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee. Yes. But, that's something to be debated, argued about, and talked about, between now and the next one. And before we know it, this thing's going to be expanded. So you got an Army. Do you have an Army-Navy pick for tomorrow?
No, Navy.
Oh, Navy. Wow.
Okay.
11-1 Army, AAC champs. This is the most combined wins ever these two have had coming to the Army-Navy game. So 19 wins combined between the two. Army 6.5-point favorite. You like Army covering, Tripp?
Probably lean with Army. Gotta check out those uniforms. They're going to be awesome. If you haven't watched Band of Brothers, just watch the whole thing tonight and get ready. It's going to be very, very cool to see what they're doing.
They're in Landover, 3:00 game, CBS Saturday.
Is Daly going to be held? Is he playing?
I've seen him in all the marketing stuff and talks and press clippings. So,
there we go.
So you got Army Navy at 3, Jackson State, South Carolina State Celebration Bowl. That's at noon on ABC. You also have our first, I guess it would be our second bowl game, but first bowl game featuring FBS teams, South Alabama, Western Michigan. That's the Veterans Bowl, 9:00 on Saturday. The Heisman also to be given out. And then the bowl schedule will resume in earnest on Tuesday. Memphis and West Virginia, the Frisco Coffee Bowl. And then a whole lot more after that. So, Felder, I know you'll have a show with Hartzell again next week at some point. I think he's trying to get everyone together. TBD on those plans. So he'll link up with you.
I have a piano recital tomorrow. So
now we're talking.
Yes.
My kid's first piano recital. So I thought I was going to have the day off, and I don't, because I got to drive to Waxhaw, which is 30 minutes away, to watch my kid jam on the keys.
Well, I'm about to drive to the office, which is 30 minutes away from where I am in High Point. So, and they get my daughter from school at 2:30. So I'm just going to make an appearance in the office so nobody has anything to say against me for not showing up on a Friday. Just going to show my face, go get my daughter. And she had a Christmas chorus concert on Monday. It was beautiful, man. Teared me up, made me cry. So, bring some Kleenex, bring some tissues with you for that recital.
I will. Listen, you're talking to a man. Hang on. Let's see. Before we wrap, let me show you what this is who I am as a man from the South. This is a handkerchief.
A little hanky.
Yeah.
I stay with the handkerchief in my back pocket.
I love that. I noticed that when we're in Charlotte each year. You pull that out. I need one of those. Good stuff. All right, my man. In the bleachers on Twitter, on X, at Locks of the Doc, Tripp Hurd. I'm Kyle Schassburger at Kyle Schass. Hartzell might get to this, might listen, might critique. He's got a big weekend with Ma on the beach and the family. Yeah. So we got down last night.
Happy birthday, Miss Hartzell.
Yes, happy birthday, Miss Hartzell. He bought me a $25 drink last night. I made sure to get the most expensive thing, so I appreciate you, Hartzell. Thank you,
man.
Hopefully, he didn't look at the tab. All right, that's it. We'll return next week with Roddy, Wayno, and Felder at some point. Appreciate you all listening on College Sports Now.